Hello and welcome to Hot and Heavy, the Elaine Bennis podcast. I'm your host, Shivani Desai. Today I'll be talking about Season 5, Episode 10, The Cigar Store Indian. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well out there. I'm doing pretty good. This week was Halloween. I hope everyone had a great Halloween. We had fantastic weather here in Colorado. It was like in the 60s, almost 70s during the day. And I don't think it got like below 55 degrees at night even. It was a great day for kids to be out trick-or-treating. And that's probably why we ran out of candy. My husband texted me that because, as I mentioned last week, my daughter and I went to the Lizzo concert. And wow, it was quite an event, as you can imagine. Lizzo on Halloween. She came out dressed as Miss Piggy and her dancers were dressed like Kermit. It was so fun and just kind of encompasses what Lizzo is. You know, she doesn't take herself too seriously. She's just a positive light in this world, which we so desperately need. And it was great, except, well, we learned something. My daughter, who's 12, she got really overwhelmed at the show. It was a ton of people. It was sold out at Ball Arena. Ball Arena in Denver is where the Colorado Avalanche play. I mean, it's a huge sports center. And so, I mean, thousands and thousands of people. It was loud. You know, it's a concert, so it's super loud. This was my daughter's first experience with that. And yeah, about 5 or 6 songs in, she was in tears. It was just, she had earplugs in, but it was even beyond that. She said it was just all the people. It was really hot. Lizzo's set actually started around 9:15, so it was pretty late for her as well, which I did try to prepare her for. I said, look, it's going to be a late night, and she was so pumped for the show. She's like, it's fine, I can stay up late. But yeah, unfortunately, it just overwhelmed her, and so we did have to leave pretty early. It was a bummer. She felt so terrible. My daughter kept apologizing to me, and I know you wanted to see the show, Mama. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, my heart's breaking because as a parent, you think, oh man, I should have prepared her better. I should have maybe gotten her headphones so that she could be more protected from the noise. But I really couldn't have done anything about the crowd. I mean, that was a big factor too that I just did not foresee at all being an issue. So at any rate, we learned what my daughter at this point in her life as a 12-year-old can tolerate. I mean, it was loud. I mean, like the roar of the crowd itself. I mean, I think Lizzo got easily a 1 to 2 minute ovation after the first song. And it was that type of like roar from the crowd that's not only just sound, but like you feel it rumbling in your body. And for a 12-year-old girl who's pretty skinny and tiny, I mean, that's got to be a little bit scary. So, you know, it wasn't the night I had imagined, but at any rate, that's just what happens sometimes. All right, let's get into this episode. The synopsis for The Cigar Store Indian is as follows. The Costanzas ground George after finding a condom wrapper in their bed. Jerry gives Elaine a cigar store Indian as a joke, inadvertently offending her Native American friend Winona, to whom Jerry is attracted. Kramer gets the idea for a coffee table book about coffee tables that is actually shaped like a coffee table with a built-in coaster on the cover. Elaine takes a collectible TV guide from the Costanza's house, which winds up in the hands of a freaky guy she meets on the subway. This episode was written by Tom Gamble and Max Pross. All right, I feel like I need to do like a new segment, What's Wrong with the Synopsis segment. This one's not too bad, but it does incorrectly say that Kramer, you know, he gets the idea for the coffee table book. We know that's true, but it says that is actually shaped like a coffee table. He did think of the built-in coaster in this episode, but he didn't come up with the legs coming out. So, synopsis writer, wrong again. All right, so we start out the episode in the Costanza's house. The gang is all there after a bowling outing. That's right. They all went bowling. Jerry asks Elaine, what does this house smell like? What does it smell like to you? And she takes a deep whiff. Dandruff? Well, they decide it's a potpourri, really, of dandruff, kasha, mothballs, cheap carpeting. Elaine's really in a hurry. She wants to leave. Kramer comes out with these little things in his hands, and they're guest soaps, not candy like he thought. George is so upset that he used them. I mean, he's not allowed to have any parties while his parents are out of town. This is a party? Elaine says, no, it's not a party. Come on, let's go. George freaks out because he sees that Jerry left a stain on the coffee table because he didn't use a coaster. It's a brand new coffee table, apparently. Kramer says, well, there's always one at every party. It's such a funny moment. Elaine is getting so irritated. Come on. Jerry asks what her rush is. She's having the girls over for poker night. You know, Joanne, Renee, Winona. Jerry is very excited about Winona. Elaine's like, oh, yeah, she's single now. And, she'll put in a good word for him. He's like, thank you, and puts down his coffee mug again. And George screams. And George is panicked. The stain isn't coming out. Jerry says, just put a coffee table book over it. My parents don't read. They're going to wonder what a book is doing on the table. Kramer gets an idea of a coffee table book about coffee tables. It's pretty good. And George says to Jerry, you need to take me to get this table refinished. Right now, Elaine says, yeah, it might take a few days and my parents are going to be back soon. Elaine reminds Jerry, you promised to get me home by 7. And Kramer suggests the subway. The subway from Queens? Jerry feels bad. I swear I'll make it up to you, Elaine. But she needs something to read on the subway. And Jerry hands her a TV guide. My take on this scene, I love this setup scene. We get so much information, but it's done very naturally. And what a treat to see an episode begin in a location that's not the typical locations, not in Jerry's apartment, not at Monk's. And I'm not sure we've ever seen Elaine in the Costanza's house. That just delighted me. Elaine really doesn't get a ton of comedy here. It's all George comedy. I love it. I love panicked George. I can't be mad at that. Jason Alexander does such a good job with how panicked George gets. I'm a little sad that we didn't get to see the 4 of them bowling. I mean, somehow I just can't picture it. I mean, bowling? This group goes bowling? What? Their activities, for the most part, as the 4 of them, is usually just eating together, hanging out at Jerry's apartment, or going to the movies. So I think it would have been a real treat to see them bowl. But again, I keep going back to this, but I just can't imagine it. Would Jerry Seinfeld bowl? I feel like he's probably written a bit about how stupid bowling is. I don't know. What's the deal with bowling and the pins? Like, I just feel like Jerry Seinfeld bowling doesn't really mesh. It's refreshing to hear that Elaine has plans with her girls. And we know that goes away eventually. You hate other women and they hate you. But it's cool. I like that she has other plans with other friends. The next scene, we're in the subway. Kramer and Elaine are on their way back, and Kramer is talking her ear off about this coffee table book idea. I mean, he's so excited about it. Elaine is totally half listening and reading the TV guide, and he asks her, you're going to talk to your boss about it tomorrow? And she's like, first thing in the morning. Again, half listening. We hear the announcement that the next stop is Queensboro Plaza. Kramer's excited because he wants to get a gyro. There's a stand right on the platform. You got to have your money ready, no change, and the gyros are ready to go. Elaine doesn't want one, but he tells Elaine no bites. There's a guy sitting across from Elaine, and he asks if she needs a highlighter to highlight the shows you may want to watch. She just blows him off. Look, I'm just trying to read. He says, okay, it's just I've never seen such a beautiful woman reading the guide so far away from the TV. You must really like television. That's my impression of Ricky, this guy, who's played by the nephew of Christopher Lloyd. His name is Sam Lloyd. Pretty cool. Kramer is slightly too late getting back to the train, and his hand holding his gyro gets stuck in the doors. A guy rips it away, and Kramer is left behind. I guess your boyfriend will have to catch the next train, says freaky guy on the subway. He's not my boyfriend, Elaine says. He's not? Interesting. Not a ton to discuss here. A lot of reacting. That's what Elaine's role really is here. Everything that's happening around her. She's ignoring Kramer. Then she's trying to ignore this creepy guy across from her. JLD has great reactions, so I love this performance. And this is, I think, relatable to a lot of us ladies, just trying to do our thing, and then we get somewhat harassed by like a dude or someone wanting to talk to you. It's just, I feel for Elaine here. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, the next scene, we're at the antique store where the table is going to get refinished. Jerry is thinking, he's going to get something for Elaine since he didn't give her the ride home. Plus, if he gives her a gift in front of Winona, that's a pretty good move. He points out the cigar store Indian. It's kind of cute. It's a peace offering. The guy at the antique store tells George, well, I can have the table done by Monday. Okay, well, no later because my parents are coming home. They left you home alone, huh? I love that moment. All right, next we're back on the subway. The creepy guy is just getting creepier, and he makes his way over to Elaine's bench. Ooh, you could have watched 6 hours of Lucy. The train stops, and Elaine makes a break for it. This is my stop. And she leaves, and he shouts after her that she forgot her TV guide. And he looks down at the label and sees the Costanza's address. Next, we're back at the antique store. The sales guy is telling Jerry all about the cigar store Indian, all the work that goes into it, and then he's distracted by his employee, Sylvia. She's 45 minutes late. Yeah. Sylvia is eyeing George right away. She likes what she sees and finds out that he lives right around the corner. Oh, I didn't think any cool guys lived in the neighborhood. Well, that's all it takes. That sparks George's interest, and I think, wow, he's like, she thinks I'm cool? Done. Jerry decides, okay, I'm going to take it. Cigar store Indian is his. Oh, you bought the Indian? You guys have great taste. George gives her a line about how they're collectors and they must collect things of great beauty. And she is so charmed. Next, we're at Elaine's apartment. Elaine and her friends are playing poker, and we see Elaine has a pair of deuces. Apparently, Elaine dropped a couple of deuces at the beginning of this scene. Jerry arrives with a gift. Surprise! Elaine asks her friends if, you guys all know Jerry, right? They all say hi to Jerry, but Jerry only says hi directly to Winona. It's nice to see you again. The actress who plays Winona is Kimberly Guerrero, and she is actually Native American, which is very cool. I mean, kudos to Seinfeld for actually casting a person of that heritage, which sort of wasn't so typical back in 1993. Like, I'm sure that was like, oh yeah, we really want a Native American actress, but if we can't find one, we'll just find maybe like a darker skinned woman and pass it off. But yeah, kudos to them for doing that. She has a long list of credits, including Reservation Dogs and Rutherford Falls. And I thought this was really cool. She co-founded the Style Horse Collective, which is an indigenous production team that works with tribes, tribal entities, nonprofits, and individuals to help them tell their indigenous stories, which I think is awesome. And we need more representation, of course. And I love her performance here. I think she's really good as Winona. All right, back to the scene. Renee asks, Elaine, is it your birthday? No. Jerry says, look, it's just his nature to give gifts. He loves to make people happy. He takes the bag off, and the cigar store Indian is revealed. They all freeze. They don't know what to say. He tells Elaine, read the card out loud. Elaine's like, no, I don't think so. She's trying to, give him the signal by her eyes. Like, this is fucked up. Just stop right now. And then Jerry says, look, we had a little fight this afternoon. He reads the card. Let's bury the hatchet. Let's smoke 'em peace pipe. Winona gets up to leave. Elaine says, I don't blame you, Winona. Then Jerry makes it worse, doing this back and forth movement with the cigar store Indian, this sort of awful, stereotypical chanting. Oh, it's so cringy. Winona just sees that and walks out pretty fast. Elaine comes back and says, are you out of your mind? Jerry's like, what? What's wrong? Winona is a Native American. She is? All right, my take on this scene, I wanted to mention, it's not very often that you see a group of female friends on a sitcom playing poker. I love this. It's, usually it's portrayed as such a guy thing to play poker, play cards, gamble like this. So I just really appreciate it. I mean, it's not like the prominent thing in this scene, but that is why they're all getting together. And I just think that's a really cool choice rather than making it some stereotypical woman thing to do, like watching a chick flick or a book club, or maybe what, Jerry says, they all strip down to their bra and panties for a tickle fight. Now, the cringe of this scene is done very well. I love Elaine's reaction, start to finish, when the cigar store Indian is revealed, just how horrified she is. She knows exactly how uncomfortable this must be for her friend Winona. And then when she has to apologize, I don't blame you, Winona. Like, you can just feel everything Elaine's feeling. And then I love how great it is when she calls Jerry out. Are you out of your mind? Oh my gosh, just really well done with the cringe. I love the pause, especially after he pulls that bag off. Really well done. I also want to mention, and I'm going to post this on the Hot and Heavy Instagram, when you watch this on Netflix, I think this is the whole aspect ratio thing, but you can see when they had the shot of the women at the table, you see the end of the set and you see a guy like standing off stage. Like, it's so weird. I'm going to post a picture of that because it's just so bizarre. I'm like, no one caught that. But again, I think it's this whole aspect ratio thing. A lot of people had a problem with it when Seinfeld was brought to Netflix because they changed that from when it aired. And so, yeah, it's like a wider shot a lot of times. And so you see things that you probably shouldn't see, like in this scene where you literally see the end of the stage and you see like people, like a dude standing with his arms crossed off to the right. It's pretty funny. I had to pause it yesterday. I was like, what? I usually watch all the episodes on the DVDs, so I think I'm seeing it in the aspect ratio that it's meant to be seen with, like the way it was edited for television back in the 90s. But yeah, when I was watching it on Netflix yesterday, I had to pause it. I was like, wait, what the hell just happened? I think we just saw the end of the set. So something fun to look out for. All right, I wanted to take a quick moment. If you're anything like me, I didn't really admittedly understand what is so offensive about the cigar store Indian. So I did a little research, and this is an excerpt from an article from pbs.org. And it states, the figures were a product of their time, a period fraught with prejudice against indigenous peoples. The statues helped to invent and then reinforce the quintessential stereotype of an authentic Native American by often depicting figures with bronze-colored skin, wearing feathered headdresses, long fringed skirts or shirts, and moccasins. Critics have compared the characters to racist lawn ornaments of black jockeys. Two of the more common types of Indian cigar statues portray the noble savage with a stoic expression and passive stance, or the warrior who brandishes a weapon he's poised to use. In their day, these silent statues were effective communicators meant to indicate to all, including the illiterate and non-English speakers, what was for sale. What they represent today to citizens of the 21st century is a more complicated message, eliciting both appreciation and disapproval. So essentially, it looked like these cigar store Indians, these statues were used in tobacco stores or anywhere tobacco was sold, and that was sort of the signal. These Indian statues were meant to communicate that, like, hey, we sell tobacco here because the Native Americans helped the settlers harvest and showed them what tobacco was used for and what was worth. So that was interesting. I didn't realize the history of it and that it really did solidify those stereotypes. You know, when you only represent an entire race of people as either a noble savage or a warrior, that really doesn't encompass an entire culture. So it is not a very politically correct thing to have around. And I thought that was very interesting. So I hope I educated some of you out there. All right, next we are at the Costanzas. Antique store Sylvia is over for her date with George and is noticing all the strange decor of the house. George has to serve prune juice because the liquor cabinet is locked, and there's just all this stuff going on. I mean, he's trying to pass off this house as his own. And, well, fortunately for him, Sylvia just seems charmed by all of it. She doesn't really care. She's, again, super taken by George. And then George offers to show her the master bedroom. All right, next we're at Winona's building. Jerry is there to apologize, and she says she'll come down and talk to him. Then we're back at Elaine's apartment. Kramer has stopped by to get his bowling ball that he left on the subway. And then he spots the cigar store Indian and gets really excited. Elaine's like, yeah, you can take it if you want to lug it uptown. Oh, he'll lug. Then next we're outside Winona's building, and she's explaining to Jerry that it's a very sensitive topic for her, the cigar store Indian. And Jerry understands, and, he's really apologizing and tells her, look, I'm really sensitive to these issues as well. And then he asks if she's hungry. And she softens a bit, and she says, yeah, I guess I could go for a bite. He's trying to think of a restaurant that he knows is around her building, but he can't remember the address. It's a Chinese restaurant, so he turns and sees a mailman and asks him. But the mailman is Chinese and gets very offended. Oh, because I'm Chinese, I have to know where all the Chinese restaurants are? Jerry's like, no, you're the mailman. You would know the neighborhood. Winona changes her mind anyway. You know what? I should go home. It's late. Then Kramer drives by with a cigar store Indian hanging out the window of the cab, makes an offensive sound, and Winona is totally reoffended. Next, we're back at the Costanza's house. The table is back. It's refinished. Jerry tells George he convinced Winona to see him again, but, he feels a little nervous. He feels like he's going to slip up and say the wrong thing. Frank and Estelle arrive. Frank asks for the mail and notices that his TV guide is missing. Jerry says, oh, Elaine took it to read on the subway. Oh, what? Frank is so upset. George is like, I didn't know she took it. Tells Jerry he collects them. And then Estelle enters after screaming. She found a prophylactic Rappa in her bed. George is totally caught, and Jerry gets the hell out of there. I'm going to get going. Frank grounds George for having sex in their bed. Next, we are at Winona's apartment. Jerry and Winona are getting ready to leave for their date, and then he keeps stumbling over his words so as not to offend her. He doesn't want to say the words reservation or scalper. And then Jerry spots that Al Roker TV guide, the one that Elaine took from Frank's house, and asks if he can take it. And Winona says yes. All right, next we're at Jerry's apartment. Jerry gives the TV guide to Elaine. See, I told you I'd make it up to you. She cannot believe he collects these. Wow. And she says she will personally deliver his Al Roker TV guide to him. We cut to a clip of the creepy guy in the subway cutting up the TV guide while humming the I Love Lucy theme. Back at Jerry's apartment, Kramer enters and asks Elaine, what did her boss say about the coffee table book? Oh, yeah, you didn't tell him. She tells Kramer, look, it's such a dumb idea and that she'd be embarrassed to bring it up. And Jerry says, look, I think it's a pretty good idea. It's about coffee tables. It's on a coffee table. She sort of gives Jerry this look like, what? Then Kramer mentions the built-in coaster. Oh, yeah. Jerry seems really impressed by that, too. And then Kramer leaves. He says he's going to try and sell that Indian. He thinks it's worth something. We're back at the Costanzas, and Frank is still just seething over Elaine taking the TV guide. How does she expect me to watch TV? Just wandering aimlessly around the dial? Someone's at the door. Well, the creepy guy, Ricky, shows up with a bouquet of paper made from that TV guide. That's my TV guide! Ripped to shreds! Then we have this quick cut to Elaine on the subway. She hears the announcement for Queensboro Plaza. Gyros. And she shoves an old lady out of the way to get to the gyro stand. I love this little bit of physical comedy here. Elaine pushing the old lady. And that lady does a great job, too. It's such a fun little moment. And man, they really like to beat up old ladies on this show. Next, we're at Jerry's apartment. Winona is over. And she says to Jerry, by the way, I need that TV guide back. She wants to use the interview with Al Roker for a story she's doing about minorities in the media. Well, Jerry's like, I can't give it back to you now. Elaine has it. And she's like, well, Jerry, it is mine. And then Jerry almost calls her a name. And she figures out he almost called her an Indian giver, which is a slur, obviously. And he says, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with this term. Then there's a quick shot of Elaine eating her messy gyro. And sauce is dripping all over the TV guide. Real quick, I feel like some of you out there might be like, it's pronounced gyro. I usually say gyro. I'm saying gyro because that's how they say it in the episode. That's all. All right, next we're back at the Costanzas. Creeper, Subway, Ricky, and Frank are admiring Frank's TV guide collection. And then Elaine arrives and is horrified to see him. Like, what the hell is this guy doing here? And he says, you look scrumptious. Frank yells at Elaine for taking his TV guide. She apologizes. I'm so sorry, Mr. Costanza, but look. She gives him the TV guide out of her bag. And then she receives her TV guide bouquet. Thanks. She's just like, what the hell? Then Frank yells at her about all the stains on the cover, and the creeper gets very protective. Ricky says, "You can't talk to her like that. Come on, Elaine, let's go." And as he walks away, he knocks over the coffee table, and Estelle, "My coffee table!" My take, real quick on this scene, I love how happy Estelle is to see Elaine when she enters, that little air kiss they do. It's so cute. And then it got me thinking, it's sort of a shame that we don't get a lot of Elaine and Estelle interaction in the series. I think they could have been a really fun combination, given that I feel like Elaine's relationship with George is sort of big sistery. And so maybe she would have like a motherly kind of relationship with Estelle. I don't know. It just got me going. I'm like, that short little air kiss and how excited they were. And you know that Estelle thinks that Elaine is adorable with what she said to Lloyd Braun a couple episodes ago. So I don't know. Just another wishful thinking from the past. I wish that we would have seen more Estelle and Elaine interaction. A lot of great face acting here from JLD. I love how horrified she looks when she sees Ricky in their house. Like, how the hell did this happen? Next, we are at a cigar store where Kramer is trying to sell his cigar store Indian. This guy is not impressed. "I'll give you a box of Coronas for it." "Forget it." Mr. Lipman, Elaine's boss, happens to be there, and he offers Kramer $500 for it because he's redecorating his office. Kramer says, "Giddy up." He accepts that. And then Mr. Lipman asks, "Hey, can you help me take it to my office next door, Pendant Publishing?" Pendant Publishing. Giddy up again. We're up in Lipman's office, and Kramer is smoking a cigar in there when Elaine rushes in, apologizing for being late. She was in Queens. Then she sees Kramer and is so confused. She's like, "What are you doing in here with that?" referring to the cigar store Indian. Lipman enters with Kramer's cash. Then Kramer pitches his coffee table idea, and Lipman loves it. I mean, he turns to Elaine. He's like, "This is the kind of idea you should be coming in here with. What the hell do you do around here all day anyway?" I love Elaine tries to answer, but he just ignores her. More just great facial reactions here. I love how Elaine is turned away from Kramer when he's explaining his book, and she's trying to like get Lipman's attention, like, "Oh my God, how dumb is this idea?" And then how it just switches when Lipman's like, "That sounds amazing." Oh, it's so great. And then the look on her face when Lipman is totally insulting her about like, "This is what you should be doing." She's just kind of like shocked and looking around. I love that wide-eyed look. It's priceless. All right, on to scene 18 and 19. Yeah, they're packing so much in these episodes now. It's amazing. We see a quick scene at the antique store. Sylvia says, "Oh, I know this coffee table. It's George Costanza's." Estelle's like, "No, it's mine. He doesn't work. He lives at home with us. He's a bum." Really? The next scene, we're on the subway, and turns out they just could have called TV Guide to get a copy of it. So they're on their way to give Frank a brand new copy of the TV Guide. Elaine is just miserable because she's been assigned to work on Kramer's coffee table book. And again, Jerry's like, "It's not that bad of an idea, Elaine." Oh, and then they stop at Queensboro again. Jerry rushes out to get a gyro. Same thing that happened to Kramer. He gets back too late. Another man grabs it and sits across from Elaine. He delivers the same line as the creeper. "I guess your boyfriend's going to have to take the next train." "He's not my boyfriend." "He's not? Interesting." Then she looks down at the TV Guide, looks back up, and recognizes it's Al Roker. All right, I'm going to take a quick break, and I will see you on the other side. What's my fantasy, you ask? Oh, you know, a group of men in skin-tight pants, sweating and grunting, trying their best to get balls closer and closer to the goal. What? I'm talking about fantasy football. Let me guess. Just because I'm of the female persuasion, you don't think I have any interest in fantasy football. That's sexist. Shame on you. Hi, I'm Vivian Maria Prissington, League Commissioner of the All-Female Fantasy Football League, the Punt Cunts. If you are a woman aching to participate in some good old make-believe football that will consume a lot of your time, then the Punt Cunts is the group for you. No matter your level of experience, there's a place for you in the Punt Cunts. if fantasy football is all new to you. The rookie cunts is where you will start. After a year or two, you will make your way to the intermediate cunts. And eventually, you will graduate to the veteran punt cunts, where the stakes are high and the sympathy is low. I mean, we gotta put the cunt in punt cunts, right? So go to your she shed and visit our website, www.cuntslovefantasyfootball.touchdown, and sign up. For a limited time, when you join the punt cunts, you will be entered to win an exact replica of Queen Elizabeth II's tea set, made of the finest bone china, featuring a stunning, intricate design of delicate roses, graceful butterflies, and in the finest royal cursive, the punt cunts, hand-painted in pink, of course. Come and join a community that will welcome you with open lips. The punt cunts. Move over, boys. It's our turn to ignore the family. And we're back. The extras for this episode were not very compelling, so I'm going to move on to Contributor Corner. Greg sent in some thoughts this week, and this is what he had to say. I love the dynamic of George having his friends over to his parents' house. It's almost like he's a kid again. And I love how Jerry and Elaine try to decipher the smells in the house. It makes for a fun bit between the two of them. Totally. Like I said, I love that we start out the episode somewhere other than Monk's or Jerry's apartment, somewhere that's also a great place to start. I mean, the Costanza's house, it's always entertaining. And yes, I agree. Seeing George revert back to being this nervous kid. Oh, my parents are out of town. I can't mess anything up. It was so well done. Next, Greg says, I like the plot of Elaine getting accosted by the weird guy on the train. Her discomfort is palpable as he goes on and on about the guide. The way he becomes obsessed with her in such a short time is a good way to build up her part in this episode. She's actually quite polite to him when she could have bailed at any point and moved to another car. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, I guess Elaine was just trying to I don't know. I think someone that creepy, you don't want to piss them off either. So I sort of see why she didn't just totally bail. Greg's next thought, Jerry's delivery of the cigar store Indian to Elaine is super cringy. Is he not reading the room when none of the women are laughing at his inappropriate comments? I love that Elaine has a poker night with female friends and that one of them is Renee from her work. This actress was great in her previous appearances in Elaine's office, and I wish they would have kept her on more as she barely gets anything here. Elaine calls out Jerry after Winona leaves, which is exactly like her to do. For some reason, this is a minority group that somehow the stereotypes can still be mocked and it flies under the racism radar. I won't go too into my thoughts on that, but I feel like no other minority group could have worked for this episode's premise, either in the 90s or today. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I do appreciate that the character Jerry immediately felt bad and knew it was wrong, but then he kind of flips it to be like, people are too sensitive when talking about the Asian mailman. Was he backpedaling with Winona solely to get her to go out with him? Or was he truly remorseful? Not sure. That's a good point. I thought of that too. He does kind of say, oh, people are too sensitive, not long after this whole thing happened with Winona. I don't know. I feel like it's a combination. I do feel like there is true contrition there, and that, I mean, I think like a lot of us maybe, and certainly me, didn't realize the racial insensitivity of the cigar store Indian. He just thought of it as something kitschy and cute. But I'm not sure what his intentions are, but I can see it being either way, but I also can see it being a combination. Greg's next thought. I do like how they tied everything together in this episode. Even when Elaine gives Kramer the cigar store Indian, it comes back to haunt her as Kramer randomly runs into her boss and works out a book deal in the process. It's so very far-fetched, but somehow works in this Seinfeld universe where everything is somehow connected. Yeah, I mean, that was, like I've said before, a goal to sort of dovetail all the plots together. So I do like that. And yeah, I mean, is it really realistic that all these things would so often connect? No, but this is, like you said, Greg, the Seinfeld universe that we love, and we allow that. Greg goes on to say, I could go on for an hour about how great the Costanzas are yet again in this episode. I love how mad Frank gets that Elaine took his TV guide. They don't often interact, but these two together is a dynamic I could have always used more of. I respect that she takes the magazine all the way back to him. She does try to always do the right thing. I love her reaction when she sees the subway guy at the Costanza's house. It would be both surprising and super creepy if someone did that to you, and her face conveys that so well. For sure, Greg. Like you said, more Frank and Elaine interacting. I believe there should have been more Estelle and Elaine. Like I alluded to before, I feel like they have a commonality where they're trying to make George a better person in their own ways, you know? So I think that would have been really fun. But yeah, I mean, the little Frank and Elaine that we do get in the series is always done so well. And lastly, Greg says, fun fact, I'm at the Queensboro Plaza stop almost every day as I live in Queens myself. There are 0 gyros or any food whatsoever served there, or else I would be hopping out with cash in hand every time. Oh, that's so good to know. I love Greg's firsthand New York City experiences and how he can relate them to Seinfeld. I'm so sorry there are no gyros there, euros, or however you want to say it, because yeah, that does sound super yummy. Thank you so much, Greg, for sending in thoughts this week. And if you would like to become a contributor to Hot and Heavy, please email me at elainepodcast@gmail.com. That's elainepodcast@gmail.com. And your thoughts could be on a future episode. All right, moving on to my favorite Elaine moment. This is really like an all-reaction episode for Elaine. A lot of face acting, a lot of just taking in what she's given and kind of having different types of reactions and really funny reactions. I guess there's no other way to say it. But my favorite would have to be JLD's performance reacting to the cringy reveal of the cigar store Indian, that whole scene, because I think that's relatable. I think we've all been in a situation where maybe someone's not saying the right thing. They're insulting a friend of yours and they don't know it. I know I have. And you're just kind of like trying to be like, will you shut up? So I really appreciate JLD's performance in that scene. And my final notes. I really like this episode. There are so many fun stories and moments. Elaine, she has more of a support role here. So not a ton of comedy per se, but JLD is so great at being that supporter and that receiver of the comedy and moving the story along with her reactions. And look, I'm always more satisfied when Elaine has more upfront comedy, really, you know, she has like the meat of it. But being the straight man or straight role against the comedy is really important too. And it takes just as much skill to have that role as well, because that's what makes the comedy work. And JLD is brilliant at both. And so for this reason, I'm not going to complain. I know I usually am like, she needed more comedy. I'm mad she doesn't have more comedy. That's not really how I feel here, because I think the comedy was placed in the right roles and moments, and it all worked. And Elaine just happened to be more of a support role. JLD had that job in this episode, and it worked so well. And this is definitely a Costanza-centric episode. And how can you get mad at that? I mean, George, Frank, and Estelle, they're all really prominent in the episode. That's never bad, and it's always fantastic. And I think that's all I can say about the Cigar Store Indian. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.